The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. 'Cause it's just a matter of time that you'll reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Happy Holy Day, Moors. Welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for the exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and more science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I am pleased, along with Grand Sheik Taj Tarik Bey, to present to you Eclipsing the DC Compensated Emancipation Act and Reversioner from Civiliter Mortuus to In Full Life. Now, before we begin, please be sure to like, share, and if you have not already done so, subscribe to our channel. Here we are. Wow, that was close.
Yes, it was.
That was close, y'all. Y'all don't know. Y'all don't know what just happened. And I'm not talking about the phone ringing. I'm talking about we couldn't get into the computer until just now, as we are a few minutes late getting started. And so I'm going to have to do things manually. The mouse isn't working, Grand Sheik. So I got to figure out how to do this stuff by hand and move things around. But we're here. Islam, y'all.
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I got to do this stuff by hand.
Salam.
Whoa.
Salam. Walikum. Bon abort.
So we are here. Let me figure this out, y'all. You have to forgive me because the mouse isn't working. As they say, the mouse not mousing.
Yeah, the mouse is playing.
The mouse is not mousing, and we are trying. I am trying to. We couldn't even get the page to move.
Dr. G.
Anything that could happen did happen.
When you were talking to me earlier about the eclipse, and of course you already know. When you deal with from a cosmological perspective, you're dealing with Aleph and Tau. The Ibri, because essentially that's the beginning and the ending of the alphabet, but also it means the numbers. Aleph also means one, and it also means alpha. That's where you get out, alphabet.
Right.
And what also metaphysically, you can look at it as alpha and omega, or the beginning or and the ending. And so when you're looking at this eclipse, some look at it as the moon eclipsing the sun, and others look at it as the black sun eclipsing the sun. Now, while that's not the subject matter, that is in itself an interesting study that we need to look at. So even when you look at the story of Horus and Isis, etc., all of that is related to the cosmological transits of the sun. But you have many metaphysicians out there that are, presenting that to the people, and that's not necessarily our subject in direct that way. So we're talking about the cause and effect of eclipsing the unum sanctum operations, or the state of mind of the people, because it's also a period for actually accelerated spiritual development and growth, or for the people to eclipse the dark side, if you get the point. And so it's a developmental period for all of humanity. And my position of looking at this is that the dark priesthood, who've been, pretty much running the world as of Thessalonians 1 and 2, are accelerating their activities because they recognize that their time is up in a way, if you get the point. And so I prefer to look at the position of the people using what limited self-power that they have to reject Rome, and the Unum Sanctum operations. Because remember, one of the keys to their corporate operations is with the assumed jurisdiction over the people and their estates under, what they've been operating on under the Admiralty maritime jurisdiction of the insurers for the private, corporate operations of the Circle Church and Chancery. And then by virtue of that, alleging, it's not fact, alleging that the people that they converted from the natural sentient being legally, but not lawfully, with non-disclosure. See, because when you look at when you go into the minutes, of the congressional records during that time, that's when you find that's when they converted organic person from its denotation in the public venue to the corporate person connotatively with non-disclosure, to take the people's venue the people by that semantic deceit to the private corporation, United States of America Incorporated, distinguished from the organic republic. And of course, that has to do, when you look at it, that's the 2 years after, the 1860 issue. And of course, this has much to do with those operations of hijacking the republic and instituting the democracy order. And as you were talking earlier, when you said you was looking research and you couldn't find it, it's because it's in the minutes. It's not in the public record. Because remember, it was done by semantic deceit. So that's between 1862 and 64. And when you look at that, most people will start looking at the emancipation, because that's where they're directed. But that ain't even it. That's not even it. But this is where they converted also or created the de facto connotative meaning of person being corporation. Prior to 1862, the denotation of the organic being was what it meant. And it still means that, because when you talk about the denotation of words, and of course, it has to do with the semantic deceit that is often referenced with people who know the treasonous and the misprisions that was taking place after they killed Lincoln, to convert the people into the jurisdiction of the Circle Church and Chancery. And of course, that's what we're dealing with today. And this is when you remember when in 2013, when we talked about the motu proprio.
Yes.
And then in 2014, but we actually started talking about it in 2015 when Anna Von Rees acted as attorney in assisting Pope Francis in relationship to the civil orders. Steps down. Civil orders, and referring to the semantic deceit of them converting the Asiatics, or they'll tag it as African Americans. That's the Aboriginal people of the land, and the reconstructed history, and that semantic deceit that he mentioned 150 years ago. To convert, instead of liberating, convert them into the United States Corporation Company and to back their private debt. And of course, since then, and even to today, that's referred to, that's where they get the term, the so-called national debt, when actually is converting the natural people's rights into to back the private debt of the United States of America Incorporated. And now, logically, as we were saying earlier, when we were talking, as a matter of fact, even last night when we were talking, and early today when you began to talk to me, but I had my phone down actually for a while. But that's what I was making reference to. And I think people expect when they're looking at the house journals and things like that, which is what they usually look at, and they'll have a short synopsis of, the acts of the Circle Church and Chancery that the people know as the Congress, and assume that you would find it in your standard records. This is why, like we always tell people, not only research the congressional records or the house journals, but do a little deeper research in the minutes, because you'll find it in the minutes. And but the other deal that I wanted to also share with you, and I wanted to share with the people, because this is really important, because most scholars have this diplomatic history of the American people, right? And so this has a lot of the history, as you can see, of things that take place in the Congress. And one of the things I'd always do, I would look at the time periods as an example. And I'll show you as a point of reference. I would go in and I'd start looking at some of the things that they were doing in trade during that period. See, so the 1860 era. And then I would look at some of their trade, and you'll see a lot of the politics that are expressed today actually are based on ongoing activities that our people, because most of our people, when they look at history, they only look at whatever they tell them in the school systems or in your generally published books. And you go into, like when you go into the diplomatic history, you'll see things that took place with, say, America and Cuba. But you also know it's like saying America and America. But one of the conversions is them constantly referring to their corporation as America. This is to steal the right of a state. And so when people are reading the history, they be looking at Cuba as if it's foreign to America, when America is actually the country. You see the point? Mm-hmm. So and this is one of the issues of how we have to start reading properly. Now, in this particular issue, as I was looking at that, because it's really old notes, really. But as an example, the Black Warrior embroilment, right? The Spanish officials in Cuba, partly as a result of the Lopez expedition, developed a bitterness toward the United States. See, so that's what should be here. Mm-hmm. And you notice now with the mind control, this is what they do. Like I said before, people don't pay attention when you're looking at that, and then you're looking at this, and in another sentence they'll take this out and put that there.
That meaning America.
Yeah, and so
you can say
people who are not reading it don't recognize that that's birthright right there. And so after a while, the people start calling them Americans, and they're not Americans. Mm-hmm. They're the Americans.
The Cubans.
Yeah, exactly. But if people don't understand semantic deceit, they read past that. And because we're trained from childhood to read that way, even people who are basically intelligent and somewhat conscious of what really takes place, they repeat these things the way they're structured. And this is the importance from their position of what they call controlling the narrative. And this is another reason why a lot of times when we're talking, Dr. G, and we'll say certain things or we'll share certain things, and people will say, "Oh, that's redundant. I heard that before." And then when you're communicating with them years later, they still don't get it, and it's because they haven't. Some people still don't pick that up, and so when they're making their arguments, they keep arguing against themselves, against the Americans, instead of the hybrid Europeans who's occupying America through their private corporation, right? So like this, well, this is part of some old notes. Remember when we were talking about Nassar and Gassar when we was over there years ago, all right? Now, so to keep in mind that the board of directors being the Congress of the de facto foreign profit for-profit corporation styled as the United States of America Incorporated via semantic deceit and non-disclosure with secrete, contrived, converted, and revenued the denoted meaning of quote-unquote person, shading its organic meaning to the connotative presentment of person, quote-unquote, as a corporation. Now, this was done to legally but not lawfully claim the bodies and estates of the living sentient beings, Americans, Almadacans, as U.S. corporate citizens, now deemed as U.S./unum sanctum municipal corporate citizens, thus the de facto and adopted meaning of person, meaning corporation. Now, you already know that by law, basically, but most people don't know that's 1862. Mm-hmm. So they make an assumption that because it's ancient and modern jurisprudence, that it always had that meaning, you know, and so they're not. So when they're looking at, you know, the 14th Amendment, when it says all persons born in the United States, that's what that means. And so what they've done is created what you call a de facto naturalization process via the 14th Amendment, and people seeking to adhere to it become actually their corporate stock, which we've always said. But, you know, you can say this 1,000 times to people and they don't get it. They still don't get it because they still keep thinking that these people of the United States Corporation Company is a country in their mind. You know what I mean? Because it's like a mental block. Mm-hmm. And so when you're talking to them, they still don't understand the meaning. They don't understand conversion, if you get the point. So they're taking it for granted that person means the organic person. And even when you show them that it doesn't, that it does mean that, because that's denotation. But when you tell them that the Circle Church and Chancery did what you call conversion and deemed the person a corporation, they'll agree to that data-wise and think that that's always what it meant, and it didn't. 1862 is when the members of the Circle Church and Chancery converted. In other words, that was the institutionalization of forced servitude that the people refer to connotatively as slavery. And it's not complex if the people know how to read. And also, you know, we constantly over the years, you know, have made that that notation to the people. And this is where a lot of people, they get conscious and they start agreeing to different venues trying to get out of the jurisdiction. Some will say, you know, some will deal with the pedigree bloodline, right? The pedigree bloodline of all the tribes is Moor or Al-Moroccan, American, right? That's the pedigree, right? Now, some of the nom de guerre, by the people not knowing the difference between pedigree and nom de guerre, they'll use different nom de guerre like Indian, black, colored, people of color, as if that's the pedigree. Not that we weren't called those things, not knowing that's an admission to the corporate jurisdiction. That's why they created that, because it becomes corporate property. You know, just like this is why they say, you know, if they can get the people to agree to the 14th Amendment, that's a consent. And that's what they've been doing. And so they've created the multiple nom de guerre venues and then promoted a legitimacy to them by virtue of them recognizing that they say, I'll recognize you if you say you're a pig. And then those of you who insist that you're not a pig, you'll get the nigger treatment. And so they create schism among the people. This is why you see people right now all over the place as they wake up, some saying, well, we'll get out of jurisdiction by claiming a part of our life, part of our own history, that we're Hebrews, right? And they'll take that as an identity when actually that's an action. But people don't know the history, will look at it as it relates to us, but that's not the pedigree. And see, back to the issue of heritability is the reason why they created the nom de guerre, to take the people out of heritability. See, because without the honor of your mothers and fathers, which is through the pedigree, or what you call the bloodline, you have no right of descendancy. That's universal in its principle. And so you'll get people start arguing the semantics of what we call ourselves, or what we've accepted as our identity, which we have a right to do, and therefore that takes us out of the jurisdiction, and it doesn't. No different than, like, say, for instance, if you you create a brand for a political operation, right? You create a brand for a political operation. That brand comes under your jurisdiction, and no one has a claim on it superior to yourself. And this is why, like when you talked to me earlier, I think we had a short conversation, and you were mentioning about some of the people of Sindh, right? Say they don't like to be called Hindu or Hindustani, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, we already know that Hindustan was adopted a little over 2,000 years ago in that area of Sindh, right? And they are Sindh, right? Some people say today India, and you don't see necessarily a public rejection of that, but that's not who the people are, if you get the point. But if you know the history, you know, just like you already know, if you're talking about China today, right? You're talking about the Manchurians, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like that, and so Canton, Cantonese, and Manchuria. That's what the language is called.
So here's a question, though, before you get too far away from it. So what is the proper name or term for people who
respectfully?
Okay, but I'm just
this is back to language.
Let me just read it, and you can correct it after. So what is the proper name term for people who were originally present prior to the foreigners?
They were actually Al-Moroccans, and Al-Moroccans is a dialectic of Moroccan, or descendants of Moroccans. But then when you're looking at that, you're looking at Moabite Canaanites. So when you go to the ancient, it would be Canaanite Moabites. And your tribes would be mainly like when they would write it in history for thousands of years ago. When you go to the true world scholars, they'll just refer to us as Phoenici or Phoenician tribes, and then they'll cover that with what they call Egyptian tribes. And this is why, like when you go into the anthropology, they'll tell the people that all the traces of all of these people can be traced back to Africa. They'll just say that loosely without any further explanation, but it's actually all of us are Phoenicians. But if you don't know the correlations, because over thousands of years, different territories, we would use different names even under certain dynasties. And so people would look at certain dynasties and say that's the identity, like Almoravids, right? But then when they do what you would call an anthropological cover, right, of these Phoenician tribes, they refer to them as Moors collectively. But tribally, they may have different, what you call, names territorially. And now from a political classification, see, so the term, now that's a term. See, a pedigree is not a term. And this is back to people really not understanding language. And so they feel safe because that's the way they can express, and you know where they're going with it, and you know what they intend, but in law it actually has no standing. Now, people who have been taking advantage of our people are not going to challenge the semantic deceit, because most of the people feel comfortable there. But when it comes to heritability, comfort in ignorance doesn't correct.
When you're speaking of heritability, just, for the sake of those that may not know, when you say for the sake of heritability, you're saying that unless, and are you saying that unless one properly identifies his or herself from a I guess a sanguineous, sanguineous position, that there are things that they are not able
that
to,
they're not aware of,
either not aware of, but also not able to partake in or to.
This is why it was so important from a colonial position for them to do what you call do shadow and cover up. And see, and because it's not discussed, people don't look at that. They just look at, say, they may look at linguistic connotations that have been applied to the people and reject them. And they recognize that we've been called that, but it's not that, if you get the point. No different than like if you remember when we were talking weeks ago, and we started at the end of our conversation, we started going to the shields of heraldry, or the coats of arms.
Yeah.
And I was showing you the geometry of its structure. So now you see the Phoenician origin. But if you don't know what you're looking, if you don't know the culture, you let the hybrid European tell you that these people are different from and act like they're foreigners to Al-Muraq when they're another Al-Muraqan tribe. And so like even when you see them it's say since the 20s and the 30s, and you see them start communicating with the rest of the world, countering colonial operations, you'll see them activate what they call the Organization of American States.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that to the people here, they start thinking Kansas and California, New Jersey, New York. That's their mentality. They don't even understand that. Most people, most adults. So if you say Organization of American States, they'll start saying, well, we're part of that. Well, no, it's a political jurisdiction, if you get the point.
Based on.
And they'll think because it's America and we're in America. And then they start thinking that the government is America. And so they start thinking that we have a part in that.
Well, see, one of the things that I've come to realize and did not for a very long time was that, when you think in terms of the U.S. of America as a corporation that sits on a bona fide in a country and has carved out a little piece of it, and it's like you said back in the day, it's like Sears and Roebuck, which is gone now.
Yeah.
Telling people what to do because Sears and Roebuck is in your town. When Sears and Roebuck has no more jurisdiction than J.C. Penney.
And this is one of the reasons why, like years ago, let me see, we were about 10 years ago when Paul and them used to come across the street. Remember Paul and them used to come, and Brother James and what's the other brother and his wife used to come from Coatesville.
I don't remember.
Had a little black car. It's why, like when they were battling to try to keep them from stealing his estate, and he was learning. And during the time when I was going on Yusuf's show,
mm-hmm.
Remember when we were doing the show on Yusuf's?
No, but
yeah. And one of the things that I had emphasized there for cognates, and is so very important, was the clear field. That's why we always would give certain things for the people to read, because they would think that we're debating with their identity, and they still don't get or comprehend the distinction between the corporate entity and the natural being. In relationship to what I just read to you earlier, if that is not solid in your mind, and every time that you deal with any so-called debt or liability, and you forget that, they know that you will talk yourself right back into the jurisdiction. This is the reason why whenever there's they would refer to as any legal problem relative to estate, relative to property, mortgages, debts, foreclosures, they would tell the people to get a lawyer. Why? Because they already know that you're locked into that linguistic form. And the people would be talking passionately from what common sense of them knowing between right and wrong, and their assumption of what debt is, and not even understanding that their labor and the products of their labor is already what is foreclosed to the Pope. They think that's just opinion. It is opinion, but it's opinion de facto. But it's established in legal process here. But they're not thinking that they're under colonial operations. They're thinking that they got to vote between parties that will treat them right, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, with the Whigamores, not even knowing the Whigamores, if you get the point.
Well, while you're looking for that, what I was going to say is that come to the realization when we think of them as, like they're not for American, they are a foreign, for profit,
human trafficking.
Well, all of those things,
yeah.
But they are colonizers sitting on the land of the people, and their allegiance.
That's why.
Here's the point I want to make. Their allegiance is not to the true American. It is to whatever foreign entity controls who they really are.
Right, so now, all right, let's clarify. Keep on. Don't lose your. Now you say the Circle Church and Chancery. That's who their allegiance is to. Now continue.
And it's and that it's a global conglomerate that is active, which is why it seems like, why is Congress passing this and that, and they're sending funds over to this and to that,
that's
because
their allegiance.
That's what their allegiance is, a global attempt to corner, or
that's why they're called globalists,
right, to take over the whole world.
Exactly. They already took over here, and our people still thinking that they're dealing with an attitude that we have the burden to convince them to change their attitude toward us in order to correct or begin to heal our social, political, and economic condition. The politics has been to promote that mentality, which diverts us from right of heirship.
Right.
No different. One of the reasons why, even when we did the other class, when we said heirs, heirs being confused. Because the just like when you understand the law, right? That when one hires a lawyer, because they are officers of the court, but the people don't know that the courts are run from Fleet Street, England, and that they admit to jurisdiction. And even though that's written in law, the people think that's just mere opinion. It never dawns on them that these people are members of the Circle Church and Chancery. They think that they are their representatives.
Right. They don't. Really
That's part of the political semantic deceit.
And to make add insult to injury, we vote them in.
Which means that you sanction them, but you're sanctioning them in trust. You think you're voting. You think that you're voting in the corporation. You're outside the corporation. But in order to communicate with you, this is why they list 1862, the organic person as corporate person, municipal corporate citizenship. That's the U.S. citizenship of the 14th Amendment that people keep arguing without understanding its function. They think it's just a historical corruption. It is a conversion of their right of estate and heritability to the corporate United States Incorporated that they think is the country. And so they keep consenting to it via ignorance. That's what's called the semantic deceit. That's reference to the letter to Obama. And so Obama did his signals to the limit that he could without being removed physically. That's why when he went to Cairo, and he made that speech. That's why he went to Cairo.
But see, that whole,
if you
that
don't
whole
know the
thing
history,
confuses
you don't
me,
know
Grand Sheik.
Logically, it does.
No, I mean, because on the one hand, like you're saying, that's why he made those signals, as if he was, before you say that, as if he was on our side and trying to say, hint, y'all, you need. I don't feel that was what he was ever, because I don't know that he was ever on our side.
If you know the history, you see it. But if you don't,
but I don't know that he was ever on our side.
You don't have to. Just look. You got to look at actions.
And I am, and more so now than more than ever.
Yeah. In other words, if it's sort of like you can't say but so much, because he would be removed. No different than Michael Martin, right? Martin being a 32-degree Mason, right? So the average people don't know that Martin, just like the rest of the people, have a fez, and if they ever seen him with it, and Jesse and all the rest of them, they just think it's masonry. They don't understand it's a national headdress. It's a token. It's a tiara crown. It's a token of conquest. They think it belongs to them. They think it began with them because it's commonly seen, whether you're looking at the Mummers Parade or you're looking at different organizations, or if you start doing research and you start looking at United States presidents, and then you start seeing different ones with that fez on, you just think that belongs to masonry and Oddfellow. You don't think that's a Moorish fez, though that's what it is. But the people don't recognize that that's a token, or like when they say in the Wild Wild West, when they would have so-called gunslingers, and they would put a notch on the handle of their gun for everyone that they killed, or you'd see hybrid Europeans when they was killing the indigenous people. Sometimes they would take their toes or an ear, dry it out, and they'd wear it as a token of conquest. It's not theirs, but to people who don't understand those traditions, right, in war and stuff like that, they think that these things have a legitimacy in an area of function that's really not related to what the common people think they are. Just like you have all across this land, you have about 7 or 9 different cities that are Salem. Mm-hmm. And but the people don't know that all of those Salems are Salam, related to the indigenous people. In almost all the cities, Salam, mass murders is in their history. Hangings, burnings, and drownings. Which you start going into congressional records, start going to minutes, you'll find it. Even where they flooded many of these cities. That is traditional, but most of the people here historically don't even know that a lot of lakes and a lot of large ponds and stuff were actually homesteads, Bonnevilles, and some towns of the Aboriginals that were flooded out to block the history. Even a lot, one of your main reservoirs that serve California, they were indigenous people's towns and cities that was deliberately flooded. Even when they built Hoover Dam, that whole reservoir that feeds Southern California, Khalifa's land, all of that was where many of the Moorish tribes were murdered, and they don't even know that Khalifa, it comes from Khalif. Even the title Khalif, that is actually not masculine the way people think it is. Most of Khalifs are both women and men, warriors. California is Khalifa. They'll even have Khalifas scribed all around California, and people don't even know. They be saying, "Oh, look at that sister with the dreadlocks," and don't even know that's Khalifa. It's sort of like things are on the people's faces, but because the real history is pretty much hidden, except in Masonry. And this is why they tell people that Masonry is evil, so you don't pay attention to the signs and symbols, because everything is run by signs and symbols. It's sort of like it's in the people's face, but because they don't know the history, they don't recognize it. As an example, right? Just with this. And every once in a while, we go over these later corporate papers, right? And so how many people would know, right? As an example, right? These men right here, right? Those signatures right there. That's the last transfer of their corporation, right? This is their own it's in records. How many people that keep discussing the same discussion don't even know this, and it's contemporary. It's not that we haven't shared it with people, but you understand what I'm saying to you. And those are the men that own the corporation. And so you look up the corporate descendancy, and these people are owners under the U.S. and Unum Sanctum and the people's bodies in relationship to what I just read. This is why they're paying income tax. Income tax doesn't apply to living. It applies to foreign corporations only. This is why I wrote that book, Confused About Taxes, and how many years I've gone over it, and people think it's interesting stuff that we're talking with no remedy. And the remedy is that they must make reversion. They keep agreeing ignorantly to the different venues that they created that actually puts us into the corporate venue. This is why I always tell people, it doesn't mean that we weren't called this. That's why I tell people, look up the War Department, look up Calhoun. And then you understand, like, even when, what's the big, one of the big casinos that some of the Navajos and others up in Michigan, the Sun Casino and a couple others, right? The different tribes set up the casinos because under the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the U.S. corporation allowed, I say allowed, them to do casinos, right? And as soon as they became profitable, they took them over. Why? And how? Because they owned them through the corporate person venue. Because they're really not Indians. Now, some of the tribal names they are, but once you agree to the nom de guerre, you actually agree to the corporate person venue. But the people don't know that. And when you tell them that, or you show them the record, they think that you're trying to deny them their right to the land. It's not the argument. Oh, we were here. Well, we all, how long have we been telling you that? They don't understand. They do not understand jurisdiction, which we keep saying over and over again. However, this is again why we would every once in a while, and this is assuming that they were using their reasoning mind, would show them, would say, these are the latest corporate papers of the United States. It's not a country. It's not a country. And we say over and over and over and over and over and over again. Then they'll go get an IRS form and then give them the permission to govern their estate. And then when they would communicate with them, they would communicate with them back in all capital letters for that sister QV corporation, including the CUSIC number on the Social Security that Roosevelt did when he did the birth certificates to back their private corporation. None of this stuff is unknown. And one of the things you continuously recognize, the people keep looking for a remedy and then turn around keeping agreeing to the semantic fraud. And when you read the, again, like we say, redundantly, when you read the civil orders, they're bluntly telling you what happened, bluntly. And, you know, you can read that to people and they'll think you're attacking their right to the land. And they'll accuse you of it for exposing it instead of looking at hybrid Europeans who stole it.
So the $64,000 question and that most people have is like, okay, so they did it. How do we undo what was done?
It's called, that's why I said read Reversioner. Because in other words, you're not going to capture, you know, like they promise that you will capture if you go through processes like the birth certificate, the marriage certificate. They don't talk about the marriage certificate because they don't want people to know about that. But once the people found out about the birth certificate, they start feeding them that with the UCCs, you know, because the UCCs are basically ancient trading laws, and they're ethical. However, they corrupted them with, because they're actually, the CCs are ancient. The UCCs is only 68 on up. And so people who don't do research don't understand that's corruption. And so when they look at it, and this is why, like, even when the people found out about UCC 1-207, remember I told you I was with my cousin, etc. the other day, right? And I was dealing with those representatives, and I spent the day with them. This is what stopped their house from being seized by the city, right? Now, I used to hold classes there for years, and Brother Aline passed in 203, right? Since then, they ain't put they ain't paying no taxes on the house. But now that his son, who I won't name, call him Cuz, who I was with them, and so when we was up there at the office at the representatives, right, and they had attorneys, and they had a couple of women that worked at that office, and they were discussing bankruptcy and all that stuff, trying to get it around this, right? So this is the claim. Those third-party interlopers. Hold on. Third-party interlopers that were making their claim, and I countered them. And this is just for you to see, but because I know they can't look at that. And so they were going over this. This was some of their stuff that they were going over. And this is who I'm making a counter to, right? Mm-hmm. To them, right? Now, and so they were, see that? Mm-hmm. The name?
Right.
All right. So that's what blocked them from taking it in 202. 201. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Now I had now he was actually in another order, right? And I was teaching him the codes of that order, which they call Scientology, right? And then I nationalized him, right? So since then, every time they would go into records to make a claim, it would be blocked because this would come up, right? Hold on. Now that his son and daughter are dealing with heritability estate, what they've done is that they sold that to this third party, and they're making a claim on it, and they're trying to enforce a foreclosure claim. That's what's going on right now, right? And so putting brakes on that. Now that's with what is called a reversion of estate. And because we were discussing this already, and we're already within this, when you asked me about the class, it was apropos that I continue on what I'm actually working on right now with them, because I already know right now, because of the maturities of the bonds on the international venue that are actually maturing this month. They got to pay on this month. So when you look at it from a geopolitical perspective, I'm not looking at just what they're doing locally. I'm looking at what they're doing internationally, because what they do, because they're converting. So the very thing that I read earlier, I already know they're coming after all these poor people. When I say poor people, relative to them, if you get the point, who don't understand what's going on every day. They think, because we keep thinking in a vacuum. We think that our little communities and little problems that we have nothing to do with international communities, because they don't talk to us that way. We're just moved as stock. And so when you're looking at from a geopolitical perspective, you're not thinking on the level that the average everyday person, meaning that I think geopolitical. I think that way. Always did. Right. And so as I write or as I think, I'm talking from that level most of the time. And because most people are not actually dealing with that, they think that you're talking over them. No, you're talking what involves their everyday life that they're not interested in, because they keep thinking that you're promoting some kind of religion or something to compete with what they believe they are. And it's not even the issue. If you, their estates are being what you call liquidated as we speak. And so because you, right, or me, can't represent them, they must present themselves. But knowing this was coming is why I specifically picked certain subject matters that I've been redundant on, because I already knew that when these things matured, that these people are going to start wars and start doing red flags to cover up that the system is collapsing. What the people don't know is built on them. They just think it's an attitude. Or when you've been as we've been talking about this, they keep thinking it's a Moorish thing that has nothing to do with them, and think because they're under the Bureau of Indian Affairs that they're safe. No, they're not. You understand? Now, it's being interfered with because of what's taking place with other national jurisdictions. The most familiar to the masses is what they call BRICS, but our people don't see that related to them. But those who understand the world politics, soon as that start happening, we already know that them bonds are maturing, right? And so these people are trying to save themselves, but that doesn't leave us out of it. We're just being sacrificed because we keep on trying to cling to the corporate entity, to what I just said to you, and then they're going to liquidate our states to satisfy some of their private foreign debt. And we keep thinking it's just we U.S. citizens and we owe our taxes. That's our whole mentality. And because they already know it's crashing, right? So, as we talked before and as we're talking now lately, this is why they're liquidating all the estates of many of our people that we relate to as our people that are in, comedians and Hollywood, and they're liquidating these people's estates. Some of the charges they're going to make on them are real. Some of them are trumped up, and they're not doing anything that wasn't going on all the time, but they're going to be the major ones who are going to be sacrificed. And then they're going to steal all their estates, and these people are going to be trashed. And logically, many of our other people that think they have no relationship, that they ain't coming after you. Well, they are. As an example, this is the other deal. Remember, as we were saying, for the last few years, we're telling people to take their fee out the banks.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they're not your accounts. Those accounts belong to the municipal corporation, and all people that open those accounts are not your accounts. You're an unsecured creditor for the corporation that's bankrupt, and that's been helping them to maintain what you call political relevancy. And then by us keep calling them Americans, that means we're transferring. All right. And they've been using it. And then they've been using that sovereignty that goes with that to keep the wars going on, to cover up the confusion and the theft. Now, what they're doing right now, and as we talked before, when you understand the geopolitics, you can see what they're doing almost before they do it, because you understand what they're under, right? But our people don't see it. So the thing that has saved them has been the congressional, that's the board of directors for the Circle Church and Chancery of the United States Corporation Company, that our people think is the country. This is why they keep sending every month or two billions of voucher notes to Israel and to England, and in countermeasure to where the war is going on right now. I don't want to say too many things because I don't want you to get struck. So we have to that's why we have to dance around even things that we say, because we're approaching the real politics, and it's the truth, but it's viewed as a threat to the Khazarian operations, who actually own the board of directors. No different than the people are arguing right now about Biden, etc., right? And Trump baiting back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're two birds. They're two wings of the same bird, right? And it's not a matter of whether you like them or not. It's irrelevant, although you look at them, but because they're controlling our estate. And so the reversion is based on you or us collectively saying that we're not staying as their shorty, because we know that that's what's happening. And as for these last, say, 20 years, I'd say actually in the last, say, 10 or 12 years, or maybe a little longer than that, although we have been issuing writs for the last 30 years or more, right? Not unlike the writs that we issued that halted the corporate operatives in Camden, which is what I was just showing you right now, that we're in battle with right now. But I wanted to see
from when someone completes the Reversioner, where does one send that? What does one do with it? Does it? Where is it? Where?
No, whenever a challenge is made, it's not that you send it, but if you were going to send it when a challenge is made, it's basically to the Provost Marshal or to the U.S. Marshal Service, which are the only lawful officers doing or having egress lawfully on the land, knowing that they're de facto. But as far as the assumed operative jurisdiction of the corporate person, that's operative. That's
so the Reversioner statement can be completed sitting in your
nature
in your records, and you have it. But if something comes,
that's when you counter.
So if you're never faced with a challenge such as a foreclosure or something
they just simply tap what they do all the time, the CUSIC, and they just use tax off of you on multiple levels to maintain. That means you're just non-contestant serf. You still pay for the system. So
how do you stop them from doing that?
Now, this is what we did with Arlene, right? That's what I did with Arlene. Now they're being challenged with his son and daughter, who are inheriting that land, which I showed you. I showed you the lot, etc. That's what's going on right now. That's where I was doing all last week, right? Let's see if this is. Continue. I want to see because I want to show you some things, because it might be under here. Let me see.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, there's some things going on. Yeah. And today in Earth. Let me see. Today in Earthquake in New York, New Jersey, and LA. Actually, you felt it in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, it knocked the books off my shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going over some notes, and my book started falling off the shelf, and I could feel the rumble. It rumbled for about a minute and a half that I felt it. And so the first thing came to my mind was
here's another. Finally heard that they are trying to birth something in the Gulf of Mexico and are using the energies from the eclipse.
And the other thing they did,
to do so.
Too.
Well, they're going to apparently on the 8th, they're going to do something trying to find what's beyond the universe that they know of or something. I don't know what that is. So here's a question while you're looking at it from Sister Shafik. Please explain what a U.S. citizen and a non-citizen is. Is it necessary for the Americans to formally file public notice somewhere?
This is why whenever, all right, now back to point. Over the years, particularly the last 25 years, that we became active again, because we were doing the same thing in late 80s and up to 93, when we used to have the East Coast, most of the East Coast meetings in Land of Nod to counter them with the Order of the Great Seal. That's when we started running the tags and stuff like that for years until they started attacking the people, stuff like that. And then just for the issue for the safety of the people, we stopped pushing it, but the consciousness was among the people. And then you've seen other people who got some of the information who really didn't understand it, would challenge the jurisdiction. Of course, they did what you call unum sanctum suppression of people. They would murder some people, beat them up, and do things like that to intimidate others. But it was the venue, the existing venue is logically, which we've always told the people, what Eisenhower shut down in '54, with the relinquishing of jurisdiction, at Morocco. And so we made the people aware of the constitutional enforcement, which of course is treaty enforcement, which is Article 3 and 4, which is written law. And so that would be by right order, the venue by which we would communicate with them, And so what they would do, what they did as a counter, would send people among us to start arguing about whether or not we're indigenous and things like that in order to create a schism, when if you're indigenous, that's still the venue, if you get the point, because that's the law of the land. And so what you have, even to this day, you have more people becoming conscious, and you see them arguing that argument, and it's really a diversion, because the issue is Article 3, Section 2, diversity of nationality. And so the enforcement, like when you look at the jurisdiction, all treaties made or which shall be made under the jurisdiction of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. That's the first sentence. And the contracts entered into before the adoption of the Constitution, that's Article 6. And of course, with your surety bond of all so-called magistrates, etc., and the legislature, the Congress, etc., that's the venue. Now, and this is when say years ago, say 20 years ago more, when we would have people send their proclamation, lawful notice to the different venues. That's to put them on general notice. And you'll see some, we said, send it to the different 7 different places, including the Treasury. That's what that was for. That's to make it public. So that in its nature is a reversion.
So is it necessary to formally file public notice somewhere?
Well, you can, but my position is concerning that right now. Things have come so far, and they're so disrupted now that it's almost necessary for the people to come together, as you see some of them will come together and start becoming civically operative. And one of the few people that I see doing that is Brother Rod, getting the people in some kind of what you call structured order. And because that's by principle of how you're supposed to come, but if people don't know the history and don't know the obligations, you can't invoke. It's not that you can't invoke, the people have been invoking. They've been making the moral and ethical argument. And while that's valid, that's not what you call the argument. The argument is to exercise what you call the consular venue, because the consular venue is for diversity and for treaty. And this is why you're seeing us always push that. And then you're seeing people infiltrate and start creating schism with that.
Yeah.
If you get the point. But that's part of the war activity. And so you present to the people, see this right here?
This one right here.
That came from the Southern Poverty law firm. That's a misrepresentation, totally misrepresentation.
Yeah, I saw where somebody.
No, but I'm just saying, you'll see people even arguing that, but they don't even know that that's origin. They'll be thinking that some Moors are saying that's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
But most people don't know it's a war act, if you get the point.
So she said her a Grand Sheik federal judge just told me I'm part of a Moorish sovereign citizen group. I got to respond by April 18th. They're crazy.
Because that's
the Southern Poverty.
He said that you are. Did you say that? Mm-hmm. You see how the semantic deceit?
Mm-hmm.
That's a conversion. Because that's an oxymoron. See, but if someone doesn't know, they'll fall for the trap. And then you want to argue that when that's not your argument. You would say, to that magistrate, don't slander me. Are you a constitutional officer to even question my position? I'm Moorish people of the land. to whom you have obligation, Article 3, Section 2, and Article 6. What you talking about, Will? What you talking about, Willis? See, they don't know how to answer because they don't know the history. This is back to why this stuff is redundant. Because they allow them to create a narrative that's not the truth. And if you start trying to defend a lie, they will recognize that you don't understand your status. And this is back to people thinking or assuming that because they know that they're the people of the land, that that's sufficient. Because you're going to be challenged. Why? You're under occupation. And so the people don't know that you don't let them put the burden on you. And you don't let them claim you to be something that you're not. And you don't accept the nom de guerre that they created, although you know we've been called that, because that gives them jurisdiction, which is part of what I'm showing you. But if you don't know that, you fall into the trap of arguing it. Which indicates acquiescence, or what you call incompetence.
Well, when we were in the process of, I was in the process, not what us, but studying what you wanted me to, to look into. As I told you, I came across information which I kind of changed your title, but that dealt with this, the DC Compensated Emancipation Act of 1862, which is I mistook for what you were talking about, but still it was good information.
Yeah.
To find out, that, well, first of all, of course, DC became the capital in 1791, but by 1862,
and that's part of it. That's part of the history,
right? So by 1862,
they created the person,
right? But also this act that happened in 1862 predated the Emancipation Proclamation that we know of, allegedly.
That's why that was the interference. Then you understand when you go into the journals, then you understand why the Congress, etc., interfered with that.
But it too was signed by Lincoln.
Yes,
I learned. So Lincoln signed the DC Compensated Emancipation Act because there was so much slavery going on in the District of Columbia, and it was commonplace. But unlike what we see as the pictures of people on large plantations, there were sometimes it could have been one or two people seemingly working for, but they were indebted, weren't getting paid, indentured. They weren't getting paid. So, but the interesting thing that I discovered in reading about that act, when they actually signed it and freed the slave, the so-called slaves, allegedly, because we know it was manumission, but we realized that what they did is they paid the slave owners, who they said legally compensated them for who legally owned slaves.
Yeah.
But the most interesting part I found about studying this was the fact that they also paid the alleged slaves to emigrate.
Exactly.
And what, if you
abandon.
So if you know what immigration is versus I'm talking about with an E versus M with an I, when you emigrate, it means you're leaving your own country.
Exactly.
To live in another country. So we have all these immigrants coming in, which means that they're leaving their country to come permanently to another. But they paid the so-called slaves that were emancipated, about 3,100 of them, to emigrate, where we get what happened with Liberia, Monrovia.
Exactly.
So
with the Monroe Doctrine,
right,
and Liberia, and like when I used to tell you before, when what's his name, Marrakesh used to call me almost every week, and he's the brother of the ambassador of Liberia. And
well, see, what I found interesting. So they didn't deport them.
They got them to abandon. They got voluntary
leave their own country. So they couldn't deport them because they were already home.
Exactly. And
it's in their record.
Exactly. Now, this is what I'm saying to you, Dr. G. When you would see me critique a lot of so-called Black scholars who know this and will always feed into that Black Indian mentality, knowing that's the deliberate diversion from the real issue of right of claim to the land, which should be made with the established law. You don't need to make anything up. It's the established law, and they'll deny it, saying that, oh, that's the Moorish thing because they got treaties. All of the tribes have treaties. Some of them are fake, but you hold them to that because that's your leverage.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you do a reversion, and this is the reversion, right? As an example, right?
Right, reversion.
Right.
Yep.
The principle of it, right? So, and then I want to get into, but anyway, this is the principle, which I told you to read, because then that correlates even what you were, because remember what you were reading is still part of this.
Well, I also,
it's still part of this.
But I also have, because you were talking about, we were going to look at it from a metaphysical standpoint. So I was getting downloads with regard to that from looking at the numbers, looking at what happened on April 16th, 1862 versus what we're looking at coming up on April 8th, 2024. The first thing that I noticed, y'all, is that both of those years, 1862 and 2024, are 8 universal years. And if we have some numerologists, especially Mother Kai or, King Simon, but both of those years, that act in April 16th, 1862, and what the eclipse of 2024, April 8th, we're both in 8 universal years. So this is the year, they do things, they don't do things by accident.
They do them cosmologically
and numerologically. This is power. This is manifestation.
Remember what we said, Dr. G, and this is where so-called religion has been misrepresented to the people. They keep assuming that people that use the dark art or dark magic are not spiritual.
Right.
And I emphasize that. They don't recognize that the powers in nature are neutral. Although which means you're based on what you call maxim merits. That's why they call what you would call hermetic law or maxims of law, positive law, etc. And these and from that, which is what you call clear religion or clean religion, has its root. Now, the cosmology is the relationship of that which is above, so below. Now, if someone's using a negative, this is why they use what you call semantic deceit, which is what we're talking, and it's called deceiving. So they deceive people to agree to venues that appear to be in their favor. Oh, we have favor with you, so we'll recognize you if you call yourself Indian. As a matter of fact, we'll give you a reservation and we'll give you a check, but we ain't going to give them others a check, right? And then you agree to be that, but they made that up because that didn't originate. That's not your pedigree. You're called that, but it's not your pedigree. That was a political act of them not being able to take over the trade routes of Cinda and Madagascar. It's in the record. It's in the record, right? Then they start calling the Carib Moors or Taino and Arawak that you would call today Haiti. Why do you think they're doing what they're doing in Haiti right now? Because they were trying to restore the republic for the whole West. That's why that's what you see going on in Haiti right now is exactly tied to what we're talking about right now. But yet most of our people here don't see themselves as brothers with them. Oh, then them immigrants from the islands coming up here to America. No, they're Americans of Phoenician tribes. That's wondering why the Americans of the North keep thinking that they're different people. And we're not coming to the aid of our brothers because we're busy fighting the wars for the hybrids who already defeated us. and sending our labor extracts of tithe to Israel and Ukraine for them against our own interest. And so as a counter move, Putin opened up the vaults and showing our people who they really are. And our people don't just like when Obama was showing the American flag, our people still don't get that's a message. That's a geopolitical message to the people here, saying, look, don't stop fighting the wars against yourself. They're coming after us now. To do the same thing they already did to you. That's what he's showing us. But most of our people say, and our people will come and say, yeah, look, Putin's showing the people that the ancient Moabites are black. But they'll say that Jesus was black. His name ain't Jesus. Jesus is a password. His name is Yashir. But it's not unknown. His grandmother, the matriarch, is Ruth. Nothing that's not exposed to these people, but they don't relate to that. They don't relate to that pedigree. They look at it as something that has, even while they're claiming to relate to Jesus, they looking at the Moabite bloodline as if they ain't got nothing to do with them. Which is back to our earlier issue. They cling to the nom de guerre that have been tagged on us by the hybrid European and reject or try to use the pedigree as if it's on the same table. No different than if you take a silver coin here and a gold coin here, and then the people put the Federal Reserve note and tell the people that all this is money. No, it's not all money. That's the money. That's the fiat. And it's the same thing in the social structure of heritability. When it all boils down, this is what the BRICS is really all about. They're separating in the real issue of right of heritability and of true free trade, the money all over the world, which is gold and silver coin. That's why Russia is being declared by the corporate operatives as enemy, because they're countering unum sanctum. They're countering what I just read. Now, so who made the claim before the United Nations or before the High Court of ICJ, right, International Criminal Court, on behalf of Palestine, South Africa? That's a message to us too. And our people are still arguing, oh, what tribe you from? What color is you? I was here before you. Our sandwiches are bigger than yours. It's a juvenile argument, but it's worked so far. But that the people are at least starting to be active in that mindset is better than it was before, if you get the point. They're on the right path. They ain't clear, but they're on the right path. Now, this is back to the Reversioner, right? And this is like for the sister, right? The question that was asked earlier. And then you put the attribute there, right? The living sentient man or woman and rightful heir am not lost at sea. And I affirm and declare my right of reversion of estate, quote unquote. Therefore, I make no claim with respect to the title and the misrepresented name man of straw and nom de guerre being a title, and the spurious creations of the foreign de facto United States corporate operatives, actors, and owners, and I surrender and assign any and all reversionary interest to the foreign United States and its subsidiaries for full acquittance, discharge, settlement, quote unquote, and quote unquote closure of my reliance on Title 12, United States Code 95, subsection A, Part 2, and I assume no liabilities or debts, however contrived among its associates, and I do not consent to stand as quote unquote surety for the foreign, private, and for-profit United States Incorporated, U.S. corporation, company, entity, owners, directors, or their administrators, nor do I stand as surety for its subsidiaries or its associates at any point or moment in time. In principle, you could structure that any kind of way you want to say, but the principle must be there. So you're not standing as surety and you made a public statement. That's a reversion. Now, if you understand estates, if you're, as an example, if you read that letter that was issued to Obama and to the Bar Association, and then you see the Pope extinguish all their licenses. So what is he doing that for? Because the whole operations of them has been privateering, and our people don't understand privateering. So now when they sent that to my cousin, right, that I was dealing with, that we're dealing with right now, right? Here. All right, I'll go into this for a minute. Now, look at this. In this letter, right, that's to Obama, right? That's the civil orders to Obama from Pope Francis, right? Now, this was a claim was made in D.C. area. And this is the brother down there. And I did this, I think, a year ago, right? See that? They sealed it. See that? That went through their venue. That's their seal. So it ain't like they don't know. But if our people don't know, they keep on, arguing who they are. Well, if you ain't going to put it to the pen, you've abandoned. Not really, but that's what they hold. Meaning that if you don't speak up for your rights, you've abandoned your rights. Not that you have. Because they're de facto and they're rogue, they hold you at that because you're still doing business with them. Most of you are working with them. Most of you file income tax. And usually in the nom de guerre. So that's in a state, a trust. And our people be looking at, oh, I know who I am. Well, that's cool. Well, if you know who you are, you already know that your communication with them should be through a consular venue. That's the established law. That's the treaty law. It's not a secret. How many times I've taken you to lesson book 14 and read United States law, permanent, general and permanent character over and over again. And it even tells you what the venue, That's what you say to them. You don't get caught up in, well, somebody said if I make a financial statement, if I belong to this club, well, that's interesting, but that's not the subject matter. The subject matter is jurisdiction, right of claim of estate. Because the estate also deals with all inheritances. This is why forever we've always told people, read the flash drive, read it. Oh, I ain't got time for that. Well, I can't fix it. If you're not willing to fight for your own liberties, nobody else can. This is why they say, this is what they say. Any human being that will not use their common sense intelligence to solve problems is no different than a beast of the field and shall be treated accordingly. And our stakes on the table of the elite. They write that. How many times have we read that? And like if you wake someone up, now they want you to come and babysit them while they're somewhere in the corner on Tuesday smoking a joint. Now you're supposed to stop what you're doing and so-called represent them. That's not how this works. It works on confessing your own. This is why, like, for instance, like once you're represented, as you might say, by a member of the Circle Church and Chancery, you admit the jurisdiction of the court. That's why we tell people, even when we tell people, like, go in the law book, right? And we tell people, read impropria persona, because that's personam jurisdiction, and show them what's happening. And they keep thinking we're talking opinion. It's not opinion. It's the operation of law. Right? So we'll say to people, all right, And as I said to you before, Dr. Jim, almost everything that we say, we've been telling the people the same thing for years, and they're looking for something new, and they don't have, without a foundation. We always stick with foundational information, things that are like, as we talk. There's a lot of things that a lot of things that I know. Well, why don't you talk about them other things? That's why I don't, because it's sort of like that. If you don't fix the foundation, all this other stuff you're doing is of interest and you should know it, but you're not in the position. It's almost like if we're on the road, you're coming back from North Carolina somewhere, and we went to go get some stones and the car is breaking down, ain't running right. And we want to talk about the work that we got to do in your room. And while that's interesting, yes, we do. Yeah. Or you need to understand something about this engineering of this car so we can get there, because it doesn't matter if we don't get back here. And our people don't understand that. They're arguing what terms. They don't even understand the word term and the word pedigree are not related. Term is relative to things, processes, has nothing to do with bloodline, has nothing to do with right of claim. Pedigree does. And they mix the two because they can't read, but they don't know they can't read. And then they get emotional and they want to argue with you and condemn you for correcting them, when you know that if they don't correct this, because what you're preparing for a challenge of claim. They're making a claim on your land, and which is what they've been doing, which is why you're suffering. And then you want to make a claim on the land and don't even know what land means. And we tell them forever, go look up land before you have this discussion. Well, that's that Moorish thing. We ain't into that. Make it short and sweet. And so what the best thing you can do is leave them alone, because they just sacrifice themselves. They're arguing with you. It's sort of like somebody arguing with you, telling you okay, teach us how to swim. Well, what you want to do, you understand, you don't want to have your phone in your pocket. Well, we don't want all that. We just want you to tell us how to swim. People who doesn't understand the status, going to argue the benefit of status, but won't listen to you when you tell them status because they think it's your opinion and it's against their belief. Because I'm not into those terms. It's fine. Go ahead and do what you do. And that's what, it's like they say, when you're dealing with a crowd of people and half of them are fools, if you stand there trying to argue with them, you'll become a fool too. You try to pick up a few who are willing to help save themselves, to use intelligence, and you deal with them. And when they start being ignorant, you lead them to their vices. Why? Because they're not listening to you anyway. That's number one. And they don't deal with facts, they deal with beliefs. It's number two. Then they become destructive and offensive. Therefore, they're not it's sort of like how they say, somebody asking you to fix their car, but they want to argue about what car they like, when they don't understand anything about the engineering of the car, and they're sitting on the side of the road and they want to debate with you how you fix their car when they can't fix it. And sort of like that. And then they get offended because they think you're insulting their intelligence because you studied on the subject matter and they're not familiar with it, and they want you to make them understand it shortly. And don't work that way. And so you don't keep arguing when you leave them alone. Let them lead them to their devices, because nature will take care of the rest of it. Now look at this, Dr. J, as an example. Now, impropria persona. Now, this is back to the pedigree issue, right? Mm-hmm. Without saying pedigree, right? It's in law, right? Impropria persona, right? In one's, that's possessive, right? Own. In one's own, that's double possessive. Proper. What does the word proper mean?
Right, correct.
Well, you would study it if you don't get it, right? In one's own proper person, right? Now look at this. Look at this, Dr. J. It is a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must, not maybe, must be pled in propria persona. That means in one's own proper person. Now you're dealing with pedigree, not terms, right? Because if pleaded by attorney, as a member of the Circle Church and Chancery, right? Mm-hmm. They admit the jurisdiction as an attorney is an officer of the court, and he is presumed to plead after having obtained leave. That means you gave up your birthright, which admits the jurisdiction. So they're a contradiction. This is why they say, if you don't know your rights, you've abandoned them.
Right.
This is, and they're not going to sit and tell you that they're taking advantage of you. And this is sort of like people keep figuring when people have titles in office that makes them moral. No, it does not. And they assume because people have title in office that therefore they're going to be moral and truthful. No, they're not. A colonist is de facto. This is why they refer to in international law as rogue, quote unquote. It's not hidden. Now, and now look at this with the civil orders, right? Let me see. That's the first page. Let me find the one. Here we go. Now, with the letter from Pope Francis to Obama. Now look at this. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land. See how they're making that distinction? Of the American states while operating as, quote unquote, president of the United States Corporation, nor as president of the United States of America minor, that's that corporate entity. Says emphasized, are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary. That capital ordinary, that means any position in military whatsoever. That's why it's capitalized. So that will cover all positions. All plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States, Article 6, you see, without saying it, but you need to know that, right? Remain in place. Look at that. Remain in place, subject to good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. Constitution, treaties, obligations. That's where your conversation would be. This is where this comes in.
This is Reversioner.
That's the consciousness.
Reversioner.
That's the consciousness. That's the position. No, you're letting them know that you haven't waived any rights at any point in time, and you don't stand as surety because you already know that's the assumed jurisdiction. So it says, look at this. So here you go, right here. All legal fiction entities, right? That includes the Emancipation Proclamation, that act, that Manumission Act, all that kind of stuff, right? Look, however structured. So what does that mean, Dr. J?
It means all means all.
No, it says all legal fiction entities
that are named after,
however structured.
Right.
That means no matter small case, uppercase, 14th, the amendment, war powers, etc. Named after American states. Look, the American states and American state citizens are returned to them and their control.
But it hasn't happened. That's That's my
So isn't this what you're supposed to argue to these people that claim to be judges when they're trying to make claims on your estate or any corporate entity?
Yeah.
In other words, when you know the history and you know the fundamentals of the laws, the protocols become obvious. This is coming from the highest level office on the planet. Who owns the corporation?
And they
to save their butts, even though you know they're de facto.
Yeah.
So look, free and clear of any debt, right? Promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf. That's power of attorney. That's what that is. By the officers of the United States of America, Incorporated, lowercase, and the United States, Incorporated, uppercase, or by any foreign officials operating the United States of America, minor, or the United Nations city-states falsely claiming to, quote unquote, represent them or have jurisdiction over them. Now, says what? We note that the current circumstances is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels backing U.S. government debt in wake of the Civil War. There you go. But now the Pope is their boss, just like he's their boss. And that means him and all of the states of that accused them, all the municipalities. There's your reversioner. It's principled on a knowledge of this that supersede this. This is them because the world is putting bonds on them, coming after them. You know, was that hole that was in back of the Vatican a couple of years ago when they say it was a fire in the field? No, well, they can say what they want to say. You already know what's happening. Now, so what happens that I'm saying, Dr. G, people, so many people that you've talked to or that you hear having different conversations, let them start controlling the narrative, talking about whether you're a sovereign citizen. No, that's not who you are. Now, if you let them get you off on that argument and not understanding their obligation, that's semantic deceit, you start arguing with them, they already understand that you don't understand. And so they bond you. That's why when they lock people, they put a bond on them. That's what the bondage is. Now the world's not buying them. This is still telling you that's what's happening. They're telling you, they're having de-dollarization problems and you're having hyperinflation happening. So people don't know the relationship. They're just using different terms and the people don't understand what they're looking at. It's not that it's not being addressed. They're dealing with a bunch of emotional, ignorant people that don't know basic civics. And what they're doing when they put stuff out like this, for the record, they can't say that they weren't told. Because they already know they're going to be pulled down.
Why was it not enacted? Why were these orders not?
It's made public.
Followed?
It's a public notice. Look at this. Even with the commentary. The original and de jure Constitution and government for the United States of America at North America is separating. Isn't it separating?
Mm-hmm.
Having a Republican form of government. Isn't that Article 4, Section 4? Isn't it?
Yes.
Without it having to be there. Right? Now, also here, reference here, 1871. Right? Act of Congress, 1871. Said misprision, right? Derived foreign feudal law entity born of treason was styled as United States Corporation Company. How long have we been giving this stuff to people? Forever. Forever. And they get bored. And that's the answer to to setting themselves straight to have an argument, to make the argument, to even make the argument. It's established law. Oh, that's that Moor stuff. And we ain't into that because I don't feel as though what you feel is irrelevant. What do you know? Because they're going to deal with what you know. Now, you can come with them, they're feeling all day long. And guess what they're going, which they always do, lock you up and do things and stuff and see how far if you're willing to stand on truth. And if they can get you to make some other argument, you will be there. And this is what they've been doing. This is why whenever someone starts enforcing the law, they will start attacking them, because what? You're attacking the de facto, which means what? You have impersonators in the seats of power. So look. So this letter, the civil orders, right? Posted on in 2015, although it was issued in 14, right? Then it talks about Nasara, and there's Obama talking with the Pope. And then at the end, the close of the letter, the attorney says what? Attachments. Civil order, Anna Maria Wilhelmina, Hanna Sophia Ritzinger, Van Ritzenstein, Van Letlow Verbeck, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis documents related. The United States isn't a country. It's a corporation, hidden Vatican crown empire. We've been telling people that for 40 years. And they've been telling us that's that Moorish thing and we ain't Moors. Duh. So they've abandoned their estate. And they will be sacrificed. And we've been telling years for people, and they say, well, remember when, because years ago when I used to talk to Marrakesh, she'd call me from Africa, ambassador's brother to Liberia, and which I told you, and I have pictures of his family home with his children, ambassador brother from Liberia. At that time, that's when they was calling me when Mike was having that problem, when they were setting him up about that boy in 93. And I wouldn't come out
Michael Jackson.
Yes. I sent them information and stuff like that. And they call me every Wednesday. Would call me, and I send them the same information and stuff like that. And then of course Mike. Then he called that guy, the Khazarian devil. I told him, I didn't talk to him directly about that, but I was saying to myself, oh no, they need to argue the jurisdiction, because I already knew they were still in this estate. Now they're doing it open with everybody. They're setting everybody up now. But what they did over the years, they contaminated everybody in order for them to maintain those status, which was all artificial, and they all got vouchers thinking they have money, and they're taking all of their estates. Now that's what you see going on right now. I'm not defending anybody, and I'm not condemning anybody, but I already knew this was going to take place. So the people that our people look at as idols and powerful and millionaires and billionaires, they're going to be broke overnight. They don't have money. Yes, they do. That's that Moor stuff. Don't tell people because it spends, and they're arguing this, and the deal with this on them now. So a lot of things we would tell them to prepare to do years ago, it's almost like it's not that it's not important, but we're kind of past that. You don't understand the baseball game is about over. The curtain's getting ready to close, and the things that we're discussing relative to that, you should have been making that 10 to 20 years ago when we've been telling you ahead of time before the doo-doo hit the fan, and you're noticing that you got polka dot wallpaper, and that's not polka dots, that's doo-doo on the wall. The people are running into the real geopolitics, not because they wouldn't still be asleep, is that the rest of the world has become active. And that's the reality. And we don't have the option. We don't have the time option that people think they do. Like they say, well, yeah, you used to say that years ago, but you told us that before. Yeah, we told you before to warn you. Whether you took it serious or not, we can't make you take it serious or not. If it rings with you, it rings with you. If it don't, do what you've been doing. But if you think that these people ain't waging war on us, we're not going to sit and try to convince you. Now they're getting ready, they're sacrificing these people. So if they're doing that to them, and keep in mind when part of the military, because they had been meeting for years after they bumped Kennedy off, and they actually appealed to Donald Trump to run. Donald Trump didn't run because he wanted to be president. That's a military operation. You have a split in the military complex operations. And so they're playing both sides of the table at the same time. But that's the real reason why Trump was assigned. That's why years ago over there, I would tell people, I'm not defending Trump, but Trump is on assignment. That's that Taj's opinion on that. Well, I understand the politics, but I'm not going to try to argue with people who don't accept that. I know what I'm talking about. And whether somebody believes me or not, I ain't arguing with them, and I ain't begging them to accept what I say. I'm more interested in the few people that might be left over after this, that we may have enough people to rebuild, if you get the point. But if these people think they ain't going to be sacrificed because whatever their feelings are, or their terms that they keep mixing with identity because of some emotional approach without them researching, it ain't like we ain't gave them information. They keep on thinking that we're against them. That's fine. But if they think these people ain't going to sacrifice them, they got another thought coming. Because they're going to bail in. They're not going to, how do you say, what they did before? They do the quantitative easing to cover up the real deal of what you call stealing from the people. They don't even know that inflation is really theft of a method used by corrupt governments to rob the people. Has nothing to do with prices being raised. Inflation is a political method by which corrupt government robs the people. That's the true definition of inflation. And people think, well, the prices just went up because of demand, supply and demand. That's an aspect or symptom of it. That's not inflation. That's a symptom. Inflation is corrupt government robbing the people through de facto or connotative de facto democracy legislation, anti-constitutionally. This is why if you start seeing what's going on the political level around the world, even with Zimbabwe and African nations, what they do? They threw France out and they're starting to control their gold because they know that's what's up. And so all of the so-called BRICS currency is going to be based on gold, back to the fundamental principles. And so the U.S. corporation operatives, governed by the owners, or right now, like most people are sitting around talking about Biden, right? And the Congress, right? Netanyahu owns the Congress. And everybody around the world knows it, but the people here know it, who know the politics, and the other people are denying it. Netanyahu of Israel runs the Congress for the United States. He owns them. That's the fact. And you got our people now even thinking that they're doing intelligent, our people, at the bus stops, at the train station, running around with pads, clipboards like this. Oh, you want to sign up to vote? Because we got to get our people to vote. And I say, oh, no, I don't do that. I don't, practice servitude. And I keep walking. And the fact that continues, and this has been made public since 2014. Now look at this. Now look at this, Dr. J. And this is back to what I said to you before. Look at that. Issued to all members of the domestic police forces. So the police know this. U.S. Marshal Service, that's the only one that has lawful regress on the land. Provost Marshal, that too. Members of the American Bar Association and the American Armed Services. How come it's not public? What's with all these so-called Black and Indian leader guys that keep talking about these people's right to their estate? And this is made public, and it's to be issued to all of these people. How come people aren't commonly aware of this?
Here's a question.
No, I'm just
telling you.
I'm throwing the question out there.
But here's one out here.
Right.
How does Netanyahu own Congress? Through what methods? Or I guess what means?
Now it's called APAC. So write that down and then do the research.
APAC.
APAC.
What does that stand for?
It's an unregistered foreign agency, and that the name was adopted recently so that they wouldn't sign as foreign agencies. And then look up statements of Netanyahu concerning the U.S. Congress, and you see they boast about it, that they own the Congress. That's why they're sending them billions every other month. But that's something that, with all due respect, you should already know.
I didn't know.
Because it's not unpublic. It's not. How do you say? Not publicly known. Everybody else around the world knows it. Why don't the people here know it?
Because they hide stuff from us.
No, because they're not into it. They're not interested. In general, the people are interested in Diddy, Beyonce. And what kind of Nikes they got on. And wearing name brands of Europeans impressing each other. Not that I'm knocking it. And serving the multi-billion-dollar blonde wig industry. It's the truth. And I'm not saying that to insult. I'm just telling you, don't put the burden on me why the people don't know. It's public knowledge.
But some things, let me stop making this noise.
Some people make excuses for them.
I'm going to make excuses.
Yeah, and they'll tell you over and over, not me, because I ain't taking it personal. They're going to tell you, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And you keep this stuff up and keep justifying and keep sacrificing the next generation. That's why people come from other nations have no respect for so-called black people, because they demand the benefits. They demand the benefits of heritability.
Y'all, I'm trying to help you.
And do nothing to demonstrate the capacity to have self-respect, to honor their mothers and fathers and be within the law of heritability like all other nations are. They honor their mothers and fathers, and even though they're under the same pressures, they come under the protections of international law because they don't deal with brand terms as identity. That takes them off the platform of right of inheritance. This is what branding is for. It's why they're called wards of the state.
All I'm saying is,
you can say all you want to, and law is not accepted.
Listen, all I'm saying, y'all, is that some things, if you don't know, until you know, and then at least you will go and make some study on your own. You can research it.
This is why they did this, so that when people start making the argument and argue, well, how come they didn't tell us? This is issue. Read that first paragraph.
The whole first paragraph.
And these are the same people that are abusing our people.
You just read that.
I know I did, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it again.
And they'll be saying, well, you don't know that. And these same people you're dealing with that's screwing you, let them call you sovereign citizen, setting you off, triggering you into an argument that you don't even understand.
We study when we find out. I'm the kind of being
I
that.
bet you all the big time preachers are wealthy behind these same people that spend all their time with them.
It will perhaps, maybe.
Perhaps. I bet you these same people making all of these. I ain't gonna name them.
Okay. Yep.
The deal of it is we've got to stop making excuses for ignorance. Because some ignorance is not just invoked. Some ignorance is by design, that people don't want to deal with reality.
Some.
I said some.
Yeah, I'm just emphasizing some.
But this is public notice.
Not all.
This is public notice. And this is just simply historical fact. So even before you go into the letter, the commentary on how you got here is in a couple of paragraphs. This is documented stuff.
So somebody sends me a letter, but I don't tell anybody that the letter got sent to me And then later on down the line, somebody like maybe you gets a copy of the letter and starts sharing it with people. If I never gave it worldwide to everybody, then I cannot hold everybody accountable for not knowing what was in the contents of the letter that I did not publicly disclose. We're grateful that you publicly disclosed it when you did, because otherwise many of us would not have known about the Pope's letter to Obama, because it wasn't like they put it on NBC, CBS, BET Plus, and MSNBC.
Because Netanyahu owns them stations.
Okay, but we are grateful for the fact that when you got a hold of it, you made it public to us. You gave us that knowledge. You got it, and we appreciate that. I appreciate that. But everybody didn't get it until it was given. And even now you have new folks who are coming into this knowledge that may not have known about the letter because they were somewhere else at the time.
Yes. Now, Dr. G.
I'm not.
Now.
Anyway, y'all.
Fundamental.
I ain't gonna let him beat me up.
How many years you been putting out that flash drive, making it available to people? Hold on. Let me finish what I'm saying. Knowledge that other people paid thousands of notes for and held secret, we gave out for just cost of doing, the cost of sharing.
Yeah.
The same information, including writs, that I've been giving out for 40 years freely to people in New York and other areas, altered them a little bit, and were selling them under UCC documents and stuff like that, as if it came from them, and have been raping our people. And then some people blame us for what they did, if you get the point, and not paying attention to the information. We gave them reference points. What I'm reading now, that's just because I had a meeting with those representatives the other day and them lawyers fighting for my cousin, right? This was the other day when I think I talked to you that day. And the deal of it is, this we've been given to people forever, but not that we've been given to. This is made public. We would tell people, go on the internet. It's on the internet. But they can go on the internet and tell you about Beyonce.
Well,
all we can do what we do and keep it moving.
Yeah. I expanded on at one point, the only thing that was on the flash drive was your folder. There's like 8, maybe 6 folders. All of them don't have a lot of stuff in it. Y'all, I'm the one that put together the one that's House of Reawakening Minds. So I tried to not only put
do your part.
I do my part, but
that's the point that I'm making, Dr. J. You don't let people put on you. If you reached out, now I've traveled this country. I've talked to people from other countries. I've never hidden and I've never held back. And I've stayed dedicated to this principle. I've never changed my position. And I didn't divert the people to other things that I know. I know a lot of things that I could discuss that would make interesting stuff if I was trying to get hits on the internet. And as a matter of fact, I'd do my own stuff home if I was playing that game. I never played that game. I've sacrificed my personal life to get information to people that others have hidden. And others had condemned, both publicly and in private, as if this was my information. And it's tired of getting people in travel time back to Pope because I'm Christian. And I don't believe that. And I feel as though your feeling ain't got a daggone thing to do with this. This is war. And they're not playing with you just because you ain't listening to what we're saying. They're just looking at you as easier food. Because if you stop getting personal about it and read the stuff, you would see that this stuff is against you. And these people are sacrificing you that you think is your government, that you keep paying tithing to. And it's not that it's not for the public record. This stuff's not hidden. It's not hidden. It's where your interest is. And we say, well, I was talking to the cop and I talked to the lawyer and they didn't. And I asked them about that. And they said, that's that Moor stuff, sovereign citizen stuff. And I didn't get any further. They're obligated to this. At lesson book. A lot of times we do class. What I do many times, Dr. J, I go right over there to your bin and pull up the lesson book and redundantly repeat something I repeated 4 40 years ago. And it's new to some people, not because it ain't out there. It's because people hear what they want to hear, and they have a right to hear what they want to hear. But they also have a right not to have the benefit of things that they don't pay attention to. You can't make people pay attention. You can trust that they do. You can hope that they do. You can sacrifice and redundantly give them, say, look, this is how you patch a tire. Yeah, I ain't in that because I just want to pray on it. Well, keep on praying on the tire. You got a nail in it, but you're going to have to take the nail. This is how you do it. It's simple. You ain't got to go to a lawyer. This is how you do it. Yeah, but that's that Moor stuff. Oh, keep it up. Now just talk to the ones that want it and knock the dust off my heels and deal with those who want it. Those who don't, I ain't arguing with you. You don't owe me nothing. I don't owe you anything.
We love you, Grand Sheik. We love you, Grand Sheik. We appreciate your efforts.
No,
no, seriously.
Don't put it on your back, Dr. G.
It ain't on my back.
No, when I say that, I'm saying not only that, people over the years have come on board and have moved on in their own to help these people.
Right.
This information, the principles behind it for the restoration of this estate has been an active venue on this land for over 100 years. What do you owe these people?
Who, me?
They choose, no, anyone who's been trying to help. I mean, we didn't codify this. We didn't put this in some kind of ritual that you got to figure out. This is blunt, straightforward.
Right.
And we've been showing them what? Documented information.
Yep.
Not just our feelings, documented information.
And then there are, like you said, there's other people in there. I mean, there's even non-Moors that are putting out information that is very
even Europeans have been saying what we've been saying for years. They're saying now, which we told the people that they were going to do, because they've been neutralizing the middle class. Now the Europeans are saying things that we didn't told people 50 years ago, not 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah. I highly recommend the color version.
That's why a lot of times,
Everything is a lie, nothing is true.
Yeah, that's
that book, James W. Lee.
One of the reasons, Dr. G, that I stopped wearing my fez so the people wouldn't be distracted. Because as soon as they see that fez, they start, oh, that's that Moor stuff. I ain't got an idea of that because I'm Baptist. I'm serious.
I get it.
But we know that that's because of the biases that are taught to all of us.
Absolutely.
The schism. And so they shut down. They hear you and they don't hear you. They're busy looking at the tassel. It's black. And it's that red hat. It's not a hat. That white man got it too. Because I seen the J. Edgar Hoover and I done some research, and J. Edgar Hoover got one of them. A white man. And it's so when you see the schism, mental bias that's in our people that they're blaming everybody else for, that they've adopted from the hybrid, at that point you can't reason with it. You can't argue with them. But if you tried, you owe them nothing more. If someone's drowning and you throw them a life raft because they ain't in the plaid, do the best you can and then pull it and throw it to the one that's trying to reach halfway to get something done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody in the desert and you give them a glass of water. I don't drink from cups and shit. Well, take your cup and take your water and give somebody who want it. But you don't sit there begging people who have biases and are blocking information because of their biases that they try to put on you. You don't owe them that. You owe the effort based on humanity to reach out. They don't reach back, it's fine. Whosoever will, let them hear. Whosoever will, let them come. And the law is, if you don't want the truth, you have a right not to want the truth. And you have a right to reap the rewards of lack of it. Here we go. Okay. Wardship tenures. They're right there, right? Look.
I got to take this down.
Look, Dr. G. Military tenures. No. The right of the Lord to have custody as guardian of the body and lands of the infant heir. It's also called minors. without any account for profits until he was 21 or she 16. In soakage, the guardian was accountable for profits, and he was not the Lord, but the nearest relative to whom the inheritance could not descend. And the wardship ceased at 14. In copyholds, the Lord was the guardian, but was perhaps accountable for profits, and then give you law case. So these people are wards of the corporate state. They want to play they want to be a ward of the state and get benefit of the state. Then they want to be free. It don't work that way. You must be in proper person.
We sorry, y'all, for the noise. We can't.
That's outside, yeah.
It's outside.
But the point that I'm making, Dr. J, is these principles or the nature of the claim of the land. So if you have people who are indigenous to the land and are not making argument or reversion of a state, as far as law is concerned, they've abandoned. The venue is called Article 3, Section 2. Now, it's only 3 venues that are set up by law: ambassadors, ministers, consul. Ambassadors, ministers, consul.
What about court of chanceries? What about court of chancery that people don't look into?
That's what the king. Whenever they're foreclosing on people, they take them to chancery court, and they argue what the foreclosure. Now, who runs them courts? Circle, church, and chancery. I've been telling these people this forever. That's that Moor stuff. Keep it up. And they're liquidating your estates while you're playing these old schism games among yourself. Because if you want to talk about how much Indian you are, you better go to Bureau of Indian Affairs under the War Department that has jurisdiction. That's why all them casinos have been taken over. We keep telling people that. They keep falling for the game. We're talking established law. You want to make it be something else how you feel? Keep it up. We don't have time to argue. We've got to try to save the babies.
What about the rudder and sexton titles?
That's giving you fundamental structure of government. So if you understand fundamental structure, then that's giving you fundamental rules. Well, they don't understand this. Why you think that magistrate got a pass? What you mean you think he don't understand it?
Well, let me say this though, and make this clear. When you say something about that Indian stuff, but on the other hand, you claim Anayangwea as a tribal nation. So it's just that the tribes were not Indians.
Exactly. It's a term that classified us under their jurisdiction. Not that we weren't called that. And Chinese yellow people.
Sister Shafi shared with me that she found out, and even them, they were called, it was Indians and not Indians.
Exactly, it was Indians.
Indians. So we would, like they were saying,
they called us that. They don't make us that.
They were saying Indians. Yeah.
That's why years ago we said we ain't cowboys and Indians.
Indians, yeah.
It don't mean that they didn't call us. It's like we ain't niggers, though they called you that. We ain't saying they didn't call you that. It's a term. It's a pejorative term. Pejorative. Look it up. Pejorative term. It's not a pedigree. It's not an identity.
It's perjury.
It's a pejorative term that means is what? That's why they used to fight you. Now, again, Dr. J, even when you're dealing with the Emancipation Proclamation, right? What else do we have on the flash drive that we tell people?
So much stuff on there.
I know. I'm just saying. I'm just showing you how. Look at this. Before the Dred Scott case, the William Dungy case.
Okay.
What is it? The Black Laws, right? 1855, right? This is even before 1862, right? So Lincoln was what? A lawyer, right? So the same black codes, they're still in your state. So let's cut through cut through the chase. There's Lincoln's argument.
I heard somebody say there was no such thing as the black codes. They were called the
They can say that.
I'm not going to say his name.
No,
and his
they can say platform. That. But that's the laws.
I know.
It's color. But that's their operation. That's their war operations. You can't deny the war operations.
I see what it says.
And that's, they put Lincoln, this is from the satire in the newspaper, their newspapers. They got Lincoln dressed in what? Moorish garb.
Moorish garb.
Mocking him. Now, here it says, my client is not a Negro, though it is a crime to be a Negro, no crime to be born with a black skin. But my client is not a Negro. His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro, though he may be a Moor. Abraham Lincoln. That's a statement on the record. That's documented. Mr. Lincoln, interrupted Judge Davis, scarcely able to restrain a smile. In other words, he was mocking him. You mean Moor, M-O-O-R, not Moore, M-O-R-E. Well, Your Honor, Moor, M-O-O-R, not Clifton H. Moore, who was the lawyer, of course, for the other guy. Replied Mr. Lincoln with a sweep of his long arm toward the table where Moore and I sat. This is documented, this record. I say my client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro. Abraham Lincoln, of course, he won the suit, but the issue was status. But the man's nationality was Portuguese. But he's talking pedigree
instead of his
bloodline. You understand? Now, and then when you get into the Dred Scott case, right, which comes after this, they say that people of Asiatic Africans say can't be U.S. citizens. And so what have we been trying to do? Trying to be U.S. citizens. And then Fourth Amendment, then we get delivered back to the corporate state, then we want to bitch and complain. But yet we keep talking about gods and devils and our deep research with the tribes and everything. Don't even know the tribes are Phoenician tribes. They'll say Indian tribes and won't say Phoenician tribes. Do you see the point? And yet all anthropologists tell them that these people are Phoenicians. All the war records around the world. You know, and then that's the pedigree. And then when you look at the here you go, let me again back this up. And you already know that Georgia converted our states to the states that you see right in law, right?
He's going over to the bin where I have all the books that he's written.
And then you got the Black Codes, 1724, adopted in all the states. That's what all the corporate states go by. That's how they've been robbing us. Then we agree to be black, then we come under the codes. What are you mad about?
Come back.
Keep agreeing to the codes and then bitching and complaining because they're enforcing them. Then you call him white man, then we act like you mad at him.
What are we looking for in there?
And they think they think white's an identity.
It's a stat.
Come on. They're doing it. So that means consent. You're consenting.
Right. Okay.
Now, just because you don't feel as though you are, well, it doesn't change the fact you are.
I can't get him back, y'all. We can carry this on to the next time.
The point that I'm making, Dr. J, this is redundant over and over again, but the deal is the current politics that's destroying the people. And they keep thinking because we've told them this for 40, 50 years that it ain't relevant now. You were told then so to prepare you for now.
Right.
So that you could put up a fight.
You could take those out.
You know how you say you don't have no gun, but you got the truth. Use it or don't. But the choice is yours.
I'm not sure what book you're looking for.
I don't see lesson book 14.
Okay.
I know it's around here somewhere, but the point that I'm making is when you look at George Washington's letter, he tells you, he thanks He thanks the emperor. He says,
Morocco.
for their what?
Like their patience or their whatever, and health assistance and
business on your
land,
what?
On their land here, on our land.
In your dominions. He tells you that these are Moorish dominions. George Washington, in his letter, is document. It might be in here. It might be in here. Diplomatic history. Let's see, George Washington.
Anyway, we almost coming to an end, y'all. It's a little we about we were.
But the principle, yeah. Now this is the principle of the argument is that while we're redundantly talking about these things, is that people need to understand they're going to cover up what's really happening with talking about de-dollarization. And they're going to be talking about, well, the Chinese are injuring the US dollar type thing. And rather than tell you what's really happening is that they're dumping all US Treasury bonds, which means what they tell you about the stock market or not is irrelevant. Is that a lot of you in the next couple of months is going to be out of a job. That's starting with that. They're bringing the people in, like I told you before, what they call immigrants, in order to muddy the water. Chicago, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, all of your major so-called high cost of living states are going bankrupt within months. And they're going to, cover it up with chaos and talk about, well, the immigrants are creating confusion and they're breaking into stores. They're closing stores in New York, major stores. And while these people are sitting around talking about terms of what they call themselves, they're going to be trashed. So they need to come, which is also why we did the last one with when we talked about the urgency of unity.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
now while we're debating juvenile issues, they're liquidating these people's estates. This is the reason why I was up there with Chetnam last week with them attorneys and stuff, and I shut them all down.
Okay. So
they already know. They know. Did they take advantage of our people who don't know? And the other issue that I've always had is that people who've known this don't want to admit it because they don't want to admit that I've been telling these people this for 50 years, because some of them have, openly or privately try to, condemn me personally and thus condemn what I've been telling the people because it doesn't fit their narrative that they've been making finance off the people with. And then a lot of them don't want to admit that I gave a lot of them this knowledge that they themselves have abused their own people with, trying to make a living off their people rather than liberate their people. And they want to complain about the conditions of our people as if they've been so honorable. They're full of it. And the point of it is, it doesn't bother me because I'm thick-skinned. But I also know that the hybrid European ain't playing with these people. And our people, thinking, a lot of times our people think if they don't rock the boat, that they're safe. They're not.
Right. Okay. Is it there? Is it not there? Can we do it the next time?
I'm trying to find.
Can we do it the next time?
I'm with you.
Y'all, I'm tired. He not tired. I've been on go since 8 o'clock, 7:30 this morning.
Oh, yeah.
I am just a little tired. What was the name of the book?
A reminder.
Somebody want to know what the book is. Yeah. Is, what is it? A Diplomatic History of American People, 10th edition. Is it 10th edition?
Yes.
It doesn't have an author.
Yeah, Thomas A. Bailey.
Oh, Thomas
A. Bailey.
A. Bailey.
Now, also, hold on. I'm going to read the publishing date. This is Prince Hall International, London, Sydney, Australia, Canada, India, Japan, Southeast Asia, Wellington, New Zealand. So I'm just letting you know, all of these venues have this information. So don't think this is not internationally known, this stuff.
So it was last published in 1980.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the original United States.
Okay.
And then that's the Louisiana Purpose. This is what Empress Ghostin sued them and got back in right of claim. That's the Wakata de Dugnamunya. And they killed up all her family. And, you know, we even schooled her in the 80s. And that's why that she became Ghostin Eel. Then she put her eel on her name. And she won that case, but you don't see them publishing it. But yet you see a lot of them, including York and many others, went on that platform in order to get credibility. You know, our people need to know the politics. Who they like and who they don't like is not relevant. You got to reclaim the land. And you got to be competent to do it. It's not even, our people are so self-hating that they don't even recognize when they're punching their own self in the face. You know, like I want to prove something to you, and you my sister, and here the hybrid Europeans still in both of our states, and you in here, down here, and Bandit, and you and Bandit were straight how long, and your grandma wasn't over here in Philly, and they looking at us like these dummies. And they still getting. Meanwhile, they doing all these wars to cover up. Anyway, go ahead. It's like it's the ignorance is so disappointing, Dr. G. But I don't let it get to me because I already know it's war, and you can't get too emotionally tied because it'll burn you.
Yes.
You just, how you say, do the work, keep on pushing.
I will say this: we normally would be back here on the third Friday, which is the 19th.
Yeah.
But we won't, because yours truly will be out of town. And then the following week, of course, is our Bringing to Action conference. I hope you got your ticket. Go to houseofreawakeningminds.com. If you have not already, get your ticket. I want to make sure I get to see you all the 26th, 27th, 28th Grand Sheik. You'll be presenting. Also, this is a monumental weekend. We have Empress Chakra Rarebird Ningrat's coronation taking place this weekend. I think it starts today in Tallahassee. So there's a lot of things that are going on, but we want to see you here in Delaware, 26th, 27th, and 28th. It will be, Grand Sheik, the only major conference that we're going to do this year. We did normally one in the spring and one in the early fall, right after summers. We're not going to do it this year. We're going to do just this one. We will go back in May to our fourth Friday in person, where you'll be able to come to the House of Reawakening Minds on the fourth Friday and meet with, Grand Sheik and myself and whom else may be here at the time. But we will not do a full conference until 2025 after this one. So you want to come out. People ask Grand Sheik, what do you think about April 8th? And when they've asked me, I just said, ask me on April 9th. All right. I just asked them, I say, look, ask me on April 9th what I thought about it.
Yeah, but we'll talk about it. But basically, you're dealing with what you call a window, and don't take it negative necessarily with portals necessarily, but it also means ascension, capacity. And it's actually, they're really are doing things to stagnate your development or your reconnection with nature. It's sort of like what you might call a metaphysical graduation in nature with that eclipse. Mm-hmm. And just as you can see the black sun eclipsing the sun, not the moon. And they're going to be doing rituals to block you. And metaphysically, they would also refer to this as the coming again of the Christ.
And that's the sun.
That's really what it is about.
Mm-hmm. That's the sun.
And if you look at the path, if you take a map and look at the path of the past eclipses and this eclipse, it actually makes the symbol of Alpha, or what you call Aleph and Ta, the beginning and the end of Ivri Aleph Bet. So it's really Alpha and Omega. So on a metaphysical point, it means the completed circle. Now, where you going to be? I don't choose to argue that because I know that most of the people aren't cosmologists. Mm-hmm. So I deal with what? I deal with the substance of the direct effect in the civil realm, mm-hmm. where the people themselves can actually counter them. And even this with speech on the floor of the Congress, right? With Matiwaka, right? That they covered up with Pocahontas, right? And you know they speak on the floor? It's their speak on the floor. Here they go.
No, we getting ready to start again.
I'm just giving you, it says what? A spark of that immortal fire, by angels shared, by Allah given, to lift from earth to our low desire. You look at this, that's what's happening right now with this eclipse. Now, are you going to rise? Because that ain't Pocahontas. That's Matiwaka, the potentest of the Powhatan. That's congressional records. Go look it up. And she ain't hugging no tree. She ain't hugging no tree going woo, 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 woo. She's a potentess. And then they coded her Rebecca and then threw her over in the water in Gravesend, England. Don't think we didn't have contact with the rest of the world. Don't let them fool you with the BS. You better start making claim on your land competently. Mm-hmm. Get out your emotionalism.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Grand Sheik. So
we ain't been trying to help.
Yep.
We can't make them listen.
All right. Yep. Well, listen, hope we see you on the 26th, 27th, 28th. There may be a slight change without me going into detail about anybody on where it is, but hey, we would love to see you, right, Grand Sheik? Don't you?
We're trying.
For those of you who know him or would love.
You're tired now because you keep on working.
I am very tired, so I am getting ready to go. I'm really getting ready to go.
And what are you saying?
I'm getting ready. I just want to. We won't be back on. I'll be back on next Tuesday. Because I do have a guest, a brother that is from. He domiciles in Brazil, and he's going to tell us about these precious metals and the metaphysics and so forth of them. So y'all don't want to miss that. And then I won't be back. We won't be back until next month, I think. Yes. Maybe. Okay. Anyway, we getting ready to leave here, y'all. I'm gonna leave with my little promo, and let that be that. So we are leaving out of here, and I'm gonna play some music. How's that, Grand Sheik? And we want them to come out. Also, check out my dispensary, y'all. Y'all need to check it out. We're going.